Making enemies is one of the more fun things to do, at least to homebrew, in my opinion, since you get to find ways to take awesome mechanics and attacks from your favorite video games and other forms of media, and then put them into mechanics. Now, there are some tools for this. The DMG has charts for the proficiency bonus, AC, CR, and hit points averaging about for each CR, if I recall correctly. But it really just boils down to it takes a feel for it. There's certain enemies that you search as a DM, figure out what you can throw at your players and how it can vary from group to group. And that's kind of how I like to determine the strengths of my enemies. Probably about the mid-levels are the funnest to make enemies for because they can have interesting abilities that without having to worry about killing the players, but not having to worry about not being enough of a threat, which is nice. Also, it's kind of a nice balance because at mid-levels I can leave the AC between like 16 and 19 and normally be pretty set. The AC is always that, because HP, like, while you're getting used to it, honestly, you can just sort of make a decent number, not too high, not too low, and then if it is short too early, you can always add more hit points to it. Eventually get a feel for it, what hit points go where, but depending on the AC and how many of them and other factors like that. But, I mean, it's always an option. Now, for me, there's not really a point in making a homebrew enemy unless there's something special about that enemy. For example, one of my enemies is kind of like a mage hunter type fighter where they can deactivate magic items when they land hits, preventing from casters from casting until sort of their next turn if they fail save when hit, and then highly resistant to any spell effects. Also, it's fun to just see how crazy you can make mechanics. I made one that was wholly terrifying, where it was basically every time the enemy lands a hit that turn, their crit chance increases. And if they crit, they get an additional attack, so they can really steamroll. I had to put a limit on their additional attacks and how much it can be ramped up, but it was fun for me, not so much as the players. Or like a boss enemy that makes 3d6 attacks each turn. As always, the trick of the enemies is a lot of times scaring your players. Like, if you tell these abilities to your players, they're going to be freaked out. But the thing is, most of the time, at least how I find it, is you know what you're doing. It's like, oh, the attacks individually aren't that powerful. Like 3d6 sounds like a lot, but I know where I'm going to put them. Like the barbarian can take like 7 of them if I roll high. So it's like, I mean, you do want to have them fight strategically, but not too strategically. Like, don't, if there's melee fighters in the way, well, that's a video for comment, it's a different thing. So take from your favorite attacks. That's an easy way to think of ways to make homebrew stuff. Like, for example, Link's spin attack. Let's make it together. Okay, so I'm going to make it a recharge 5/6. This means that it can be good enough to the players to be scared of when it uses and hope that doesn't recharge. But, rare enough not to be used all the time. And let's say that we're fighting, I don't know, low to mid levels, so let's make it 66 slashing damage in a 30-foot radius around them. Not only that, but after they finish their spin attack, they can move up to their movement speed in any direction. This can include going upwards. I think that's kind of a theme with how the spin attack, especially like in the game and like Smash Bros, like spins upwards. I think that could be a fun little addition. Also, like, I made an enemy based off of Rakan and Zaya from League of Legends. I think I mentioned this before in my TPK video, but basically, there was like a big dinosaur and then a bunch of smaller dinosaurs, and every time they attacked and were killed, they left shards on the ground, and then the big dinosaur could suck up all the shards on the battlefield, and the damage increased by how many shards were on the battlefield, and then they could also release shards, so it got, and then again, the damage increased if they had more shards on them, so it just kind of steamrolled. But I love the mechanic, and taking some fine tuning, I would definitely try it again. The thing is, you want them to still use the cool abilities because you made them and it's going to be fun to use. Like, the unfortunate thing about it is sometimes you don't always get to take full use of your homebrew enemies. Which can feel bad, but again, like, if you don't use that one ability, you can just put it on a different enemy and reuse that. Or if you're, playing it against, if you're running for different players, you can always run that again. Like, they're still reusable, just like most creatures in D&D are. Regardless, being able to make something tangible that could end up being used in a fun or interesting way is always worth it to me. Getting to see that realized. Combining flavor mechanics is some of the best way to do it, as I mentioned. Like with Link Spin Attack. Now, again, it doesn't have to be offensive either. Like, let's make another one together. Kylo Ren, like the thing he does where he stops lasers, he like uses force and frees them in midair. What if we made that an ability? Okay. Well, I'm gonna say it's a reaction, and when he sees a projectile launched at him, he can use his reaction to stop the projectile exactly halfway in between the creature who attacked with it and himself. Now, he has to hold concentration in order to keep the projectile from releasing. Now, the thing is, if he moves out of the way and releases his concentration, the projectile will still continue on its path until it hits something. And for each turn that the projectile was held in place, it deals an additional D10 damage on the hit. The thing is, you might want to change the release, right? Because there may not always be an enemy in the path. Maybe it just bursts from where it is and it deals the projectile damage plus more for each turn. That, like, you could do something like that too. There's a lot of ways, but I like the idea that he has to concentrate on it. You can also do like a Princess Bride ability, like halfway through the fight you realize that they're not left-handed and they flip to the other hand and they get a bonus like attack and damage. That could be fun. There's a ton of options. I'm sure you've seen homebrew enemies out there, made them yourselves, and kind of seen how potentially the abilities and flavor can fit really well together. The world is your oyster, honestly. Like, you can also amalgamate certain existing abilities, like give an enemy like heated body, so they take damage when they hit it, regeneration, and then like magic resistance or something. Like, just picking the traits that you like and putting it into an enemy there's no crime in that. You know that it's probably safer to use and a nice kind of toe in the water for making homebrew enemies. I hope that helped. Again, look for monsters around the same power level. It just takes a bit of getting used to. It's a lot of fun and rewarding. This is Sean from Double Deck Dungeon, signing off.